Well, we turn again now to William Gurnall. We've dealing still with the shield of faith, and the main section we're in, we saw a couple of weeks ago that faith must be preserved with great care because of its preeminence among the graces. And then he moved on to look at that. How are you going to preserve faith? And he gave us 5 directions. First of all, God's word, which is instrumental in producing and preserving faith. Secondly, we are to keep a watch upon our conscience. Thirdly, we are to exercise our faith. Fourthly, we are to deal with any residual unbelief. And fourthly, we are to labor to increase faith. Now, he's coming on immediately after that to this section now, where he asks how we can know if faith is weak or strong. How we know if faith is weak or strong. He makes 7 points. I'm hoping to deal with the first 3 tonight. The first point that he makes is this: the more entirely the Christian can rely on God's promises, then the stronger is his faith. When we trust God for his bare promise, as Gurnall calls it, just taking him at his word, as it were, we trust him on his own credit. And this is faith indeed. And he begins an illustration which he's going to develop. The person who walks without a crutch is obviously stronger than the person who needs one to lean on. Well, says Gurnall, it's as if the ground that the promise writes, as if the promise is the ground which faith walks on. The promise is the ground which faith walks on. But sense and reason are the crutches on which weak faith depends too much, depending too much on sense and reason. Now, he's got 2 subheadings here, both of them connected with that. The first directly related to his illustration of the person with a crutch. And he has a question. Can you believe without the crutch of sense and feeling? Can you believe without the crutch of sense and feeling? What does he mean? Well, let's listen. Maybe in days past you have basked in God's love and the rays of his favor. And as long as the sun shone in your window, your heart was light. You thought you could never distrust God again or listen to any unbelieving ideas or thoughts. But how is your heart now, given that these demonstrations of his favor have perhaps stopped? You are no longer basking in his love and in the rays of his favor. Because you can no longer see his love, does your eye of faith lose sight of his mercy and the truth of his promise? He has another illustration. The little child thinks his mother is lost if she goes out of the room where he is. You know the way it is. The mother goes out of the room and the child becomes very, very upset. But as that child grows older and wiser, he realizes this is not so. Mother has just gone out of the room. And so it is with a believer. Christian, bless God for the experiences when you tasted his love, but know this, that you cannot judge your faith, whether weak or strong, by these experiences. Experiences are like crutches, which help a lame man walk, but they don't make him sound or strong in and of themselves. It's food and exercise that are going to do that. So labor to lean more on the promise and less on tangible expressions of God's love. And here's another illustration. Although a strong man doesn't rely on his cane all the way, as a lame person leans on his crutch all the time, yet even the person with the cane may use it now and then to defend himself from a thief or a dog in his path. And so the maturing Christian may make use of his experiences in some temptations. Although he doesn't lay the weight of his faith upon them, he lays that upon the promise. So that's the first subsection. The more entirely the Christian can rely on God's promises, the stronger is his faith. Can you believe without the crutch of sense and feeling? And can you believe, secondly, when reason breaks down? When reason breaks down. He's not dealing here so much with feelings, it's with reason. Does your faith fall to the ground with the broken crutch of reason? It's a strong faith indeed that can trample on the improbabilities and the impossibilities which reason puts forward against the performance of the promise. It's not the feelings here that are causing a problem, it's the problems that are causing a problem. The insurmountables, the impossibles, the this, that, and the next thing which is coming up. And these can seem very intimidating, very difficult indeed. He speaks of Noah. Noah worked hard on the ark because he believed God meant what he said. And Noah, says Gurnall, never bothered to clear the matter with his reasoning to see how these strange things might come to pass. And strange they were. Building an ark, going to populate it with these creatures and the whole world. How's that going to happen? Well, Noah believed God, Hebrews 11:8. And that was the end of the matter. Here's another illustration. Skillful swimmers are not afraid to get into water over their heads, whereas the young learner is feeling for the bottom on the ground and will stay close to the bank. Strong faith does not fear when God carries the creature beyond the depth of reason. And he quotes here what we read in 2 Chronicles 20, King Jehoshaphat, when he says, "Neither know we what to do," said Jehoshaphat, "but our eyes are upon thee." It is as if he said, we are swallowed up in a sea that is bigger than we are. We have no idea how to get out of this trouble. And there were all these armies attacking him, as we saw in our reading. But our eyes are upon you. We will not give up as long as there is strength in your arm, as long as there is tenderness in your heart, and truth in your promise. As long as there is strength in your arm, tenderness in your heart, and truth in your promise. Weak faith that gropes for some footing, for reason to try to stand on, desperately to reconcile God's promise and human reasoning. Weak faith asks many questions. Remember when Christ said to the disciples, "Give ye them to eat," his disciples, they have questions. Shall we go and buy 200 pennyworth of bread? Mark 6, verse 37. As if Christ's bare word could not spare them that cost and that trouble. What are they among so many? Oh, what indeed? Reason is struggling. And then there's old Zacharias that we read in our second reading. "Whereby shall I know this, says Zacharias to the angel, for I am an old man, my wife well stricken in years." His faith was too feeble from that moment to stand up to such wonderful news. Luke 1:18. So, that's the first thing. The more entirely the Christian can rely on God's promise, the stronger is his faith. The second thing that he says, more time, the second thing that he says is that the more contented the Christian's heart under the changes which providence brings, the stronger is his faith. I'm going to read that slowly again because it's quite a long sentence. The more contented the Christian's heart is under the changes which providence brings to his state and to his conditions in this world, the stronger is his faith. He begins with an illustration again. Weak bodies can't tolerate change of weather in the same way that healthy ones can. Heat and cold, fair or bad weather cause no great change in the strong man's constitution. But the weak person is easily affected by them and complains of them. In the same way, strong faith can live in any climate, he says, travel in all weathers, and handle any unpredictable condition. And he quotes Paul in Philippians 4:11. I have learned, he says, in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. Unfortunately, not all of Christ's followers are like Paul, and weak faith has not yet mastered this hard lesson. When God turns your health into sickness, when he turns your abundance into poverty, when he turns your honor into contempt, how do you talk to him about it? Is your spirit bitter and discontented? Do you vent your feelings in whining and grumbling? Or are you satisfied to agree with God's sovereignty in your situation? Not from ignorance of the affliction, but in an assurance that he is working these things together for good because he has called you and loved you. Now, he makes two sub-points here as well. First of all, contentment shows that God reigns in your heart. Contentment shows that God reigns in your heart. You reverence his authority, you trust his sovereignty, or else you would not obey his orders. He quotes Psalm 39, I was dumb, I opened not my mouth, because thou didst it. If the blow had come from any other hand, David would not have taken it so silently. But he takes it silently because it has come from God. And he has another illustration here. When a servant smacks a child, the child runs immediately to tell his father. But even although the father himself punishes that same child more severely than the servant did, the child does not complain because he respects his father's authority. In the same way, your comfort comes from God alone. We were singing in Psalm 46, be still and know that I am God. We must know God believingly before our hearts will be still. So contentment shows that God reigns in your heart. And secondly, a surrendered heart trusts God's mercy and goodness during trouble. You believe he can work through your trouble for good, or else you would not sacrifice your immediate pleasure so easily. He has an illustration. It's a nice one. The child goes to bed willingly, while others are going to a family dinner, if the mother promises to save something for him in the morning. The child believes the promise and is content to obey. Surely the eye of your faith sees something which will recompense your present loss, and this makes you willing to fast while others feast, or be sick while others are well. Paul tells why he and his brothers in affliction did not faint. They saw heaven coming to them while the earth was going from them. 2 Corinthians 4, for which cause we faint not. Why? Why, Paul? For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh in us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. So that's the second point. The more entirely the Christian can rely on God's promise, the stronger the faith. The more contented the Christian is under changes of providence, the stronger is his faith. I'm going to deal with the third one because it's very, very short. The longer a Christian can wait for answers, the stronger is his faith. The longer they can wait for answers. Only the poorest tradesman must demand cash for what he sells. Weak faith is all for the present. If it can't have its desires met instantly, it grows jealous and comes to sad conclusions. The prayer must not be heard, or God doesn't love me. But strong faith, strong enough to do business with God, can wait. Isaiah 28:16, he that believeth shall not make haste. The investment is in good hands, and he is not anxious to call it home, knowing well that the longest voyages have the richest returns. Now, as I say, he has another 4 fairly short points to make after this, but we must leave it there.